KBLA Talk 1580. Let's talk about it. 800-920-1580. I'm Dominique DiPrima. And, well, I'm glad to see that some conversations are going on, and Russia claims they are going to pull back their military activity near Kyiv as peace talks seem to be progressing. So that is something good this morning. Hopefully we won't see more reversals as we've seen along the way here. One of many topics, but whether it is in Yemen, whether it is in the Ukraine, whether it is in the Sudan, I am one who stands against war. I want to just, push back on a story in our own news service. They're saying that Quintez Brown, who was indicted by a grand jury yesterday, accused of trying to shoot a Democratic mayoral candidate, Craig Greenberg, is a Black Lives Matter activist, and that is not the truth. And see, this is a talking point that really ticks me off, because a lot of these right-wing conservative groups, what they like to do is they like to say everybody's a Black Lives Matter activist. Well, I guess in a broad sense, we're all Black Lives Matter activists. But as far as actually being a member of Black Lives Matter, this guy was not. He was at protests. He was a student activist. But they think they're slick, and they do that to try to belittle and undermine Black Lives Matter. Oh, Black Lives Matter people out here shooting politicians. No, that's not what's happening at all. And I hate to push back on our own news, but sometimes you got to set the record straight, because that's called media literacy. We have to be able to read between the headlines. Why are they saying that? And what did you do? It's just like, in Los Angeles, particularly a problem with the LA Times, which I'm a subscriber to, but I see this in other major cities where they just say so-and-so is a civil rights activist. Well, did you just granted that person the title? What have they done? It's the same thing with when there's a problematic situation, conservatives label the person a Black Lives Matter activist or a Black Lives Matter leader, when in fact they're not affiliated with any legit Black Lives Matter chapter, or they may have their own anti-racist organization, but it's not specifically Black Lives Matter, and it's something we have to really track, because it's a way of smearing. I'm sure they did this with the Black Panther Party. I was, not around to be parsing headlines then, but I'm sure they did it because the propaganda that passes itself off as journalism so many times is something you can see through if you get in the habit of doing it. And this is part of a war on Black Lives Matter. It's part of a propaganda war. I feel like the right was late to the party when it came to trying to undermine Black Lives Matter. So now they're going full bore. Really needed to point that out. Unfortunately, this young man has been indicted. Apparently, he does have some mental health challenges, and they're going to support felony charges against him. He's 21. He's facing a charge of attempted murder, 4 counts of wanton endangerment, but he's not a member of Black Lives Matter. Unfortunately, he is a troubled young man. He's a writer and an activist. And so let the record show. Mississippi's going to get rid of its state song, which is tied to racism. So see the positive impacts of our protests continue. Let's keep tracking those. Fred from LA, you have the mic. Good morning.
Good morning, Dominic. Thanks for taking my call. How you doing, sister?
I'm blessed. How are you?
Yeah, I want to talk about the confirmation of Janet Jackson. The Republicans need to be ashamed of themselves. Did you look at a part of the confirmation hearing? Lindsey Graham up there talking about, do you go to church on Sunday? What does that have to do with the job? And I was so glad that Cory Booker came to her rescue. So I think that the Democrats are going to confirm her on Monday. It'll be our first black judge on the Supreme Court.
Black woman, yeah.
When you look at it, black woman, and basically when you look at it, they're mad because she's a woman, she's smart, And my thing is that we need her on that court. I know you have a lot of calls, and keep doing what you're doing, and take care. I'll take my comments off the air.
Take care of yourself, Fred. Great point. I think they will confirm her. I don't know that Corey rescued her, Senator Booker, I should say. I don't know him personally, but I think he uplifted all of us, and he gave her support at a much needed moment. She certainly was capable of rescuing herself. Looking for your calls, 800-920-1580. Tell you about that state song and how Colin Kaepernick and Naomi Osaka are teaming up. Now there's a powerful combination. KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Wait, what? Maxwell, Anthony Hamilton? I'm there. Wait, that's the Black Promoters Collective. They're the ones that did the New Edition concert that I attended, and it was tight. I mean, I love to go to a Black venture and everything's tight. Like, boom, everything was on time. They started exactly at 7, maybe a little before Jodeci was on stage. There was no extra time in between. The DJ was dope. Really good review for that show. Let's go to Kwamel calling us from Gardena. Good morning.
Well. Hey, you.
Hey.
Yeah, so there's a big jumble of things going on that kind of attack. So first off, to the hip hop thing, I'm a hip hop head, good old B-boy way back in the 80s, K-Day and everything. This very station what this used to be. But the one thing you got to be careful with hip hop is that people aren't just saying it's shorthand for Black music or Black culture. I think people do that a lot, or like shorthand for like really corny dances and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Real B-boys and B-girls kind of what's happening, and I don't know. There was a post once that came up and said, "I fell in love with hip hop when I heard blank," and I'm like, you have to have heard music to fall in love with hip hop. Like, I fell in love by the dances, but the dances which came out of a lot of them came out of funk. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, here
for sure, because back in the day they were dancing to James Brown and Good Times.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't know nothing about that, Kwamel. They don't know nothing about that, Kwamel. It's like these newscasters that used to call Chris Brown a rapper, and I was like, wait, what?
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you see that kind of stuff. Like, I hate when hip hop and R&B constantly get lumped together. Like, that's why I said it's a shorthand for Black music. And basically, they wanted to kind of, almost kind of wanted to kind of sully hip hop. Kind of, it's almost a similar way to sully Black Lives Matter by saying they basically just replaced R&B. And I kind of found that when I would listen to a lot of R&B songs in the clubs. When I started to kind of get away from going to clubs. But I noticed that they were all kind of trying to compete with the rappers to make club bangers, and they both didn't just enjoy their own distinct lanes. And I just found that irritating.
Yeah, well, there is more crossover now. You got people, I guess Drake, strictly speaking, is a rapper, but he's R&B-ish, and you got R&B guys. Everybody's got, somebody putting bars on their song, so there's a lot more crossover. And back in the day, everything was more in strict categories.
The aesthetics are a problem. And ultimately, I'm going to move on to the next thing. I feel like a lot of rap, there's a lot of like kind of rap genres that really don't have that hip hop spirit. They don't have that b-boy spirit. The b-boys, b-girls not there. It's it's to kind of do something else. And these guys are putting out the stuff do not care about hip hop.
Okay, let me ask you something though. Don't we just kind of sound like grumpy old people when we say that? Back in our day, hip hop was good. Now it's whack.
I try to watch that because there actually is a lot of stuff that slaps sonically right now. And in more recent years. So I don't want to be that guy. I think TDE is doing it well. I feel like there's. Drake has a good sonic aesthetic many times, and then there's other cats coming up too that are hard for me to name right now. But I mean, yeah, you can tell. I mean, it's not really like where people are competitive about spitting. The beat aesthetic, the DJ aesthetic, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not really that taking it back to the park dance thing. And I kind of found even back in the 2000s, a lot of cats didn't know their history like that. So, there's just obvious stuff you can tell, like, it ain't hip-hop like that. It's just not. So on to the elephant in the room topic. I really hate when folks see stuff like the incident that happened back on Sunday, and they get into this whole thing of, it's going to set black people 75 years. Okay, that's a talking point right there, because
yeah, it is actually.
What you see is major respectability politics at work, where it's like, don't do this thing in front of white folks, and then another thing starts happening, like, why are we messing with these white folk platforms and stuff anyway? Hang on a second. That's why I stop and say, for one, we need to have self-esteem enough to say, okay, we're in power, we got each other's backs. If we can all get together and close ranks and bang on something about the word finna, we could do that to come together and defend one another. Yeah, I saw this dumbness over on the internet the other day. But yeah, we could defend one another and say, you're not going to take Will Smith's award. He's not canceled. Chris Rock is not canceled. Jada's not canceled. They're all. I'm not the cancel culture thing, but anyways, they're all.
But yeah, I mean, but Kwamel, along those lines, before I forget, don't worry, I'm not going to cut you off or anything, but that's another little talking point that came out of the whole Will Smith incident that I think is super dumb. A lot of people are going, well, he's defending his wife, but he should have punched, Alcina. No. I agree with Zoe Williams on that. That's their marriage. They have an agreement. Will Smith said there's never been infidelity in his marriage. That means he agreed to whatever that thing was, that entanglement. And it's probably because he don't want to give up his own entanglements. Just because y'all not tracking him, he don't have her letting her run them streets, and he not in them streets. So no, that one has nothing to do with the other. That's his wife. They have an agreement. Yeah. Their relationship is what it is, and she's his wife. So if he's defending her, I'm not saying he should have smacked Chris, but I'm just saying you can't undermine the fact that this brother is defending his wife because that's what he was doing, just because you don't agree with their relationship. Guess what? You're not invited into it, so don't worry about that. And that's a dumb talking point that I hate.
Yeah, I can't stand it, because everything is not something that's just destroying blackness. Like we all should take care of ourselves.
That's classic respectability politics, is what you're talking about. Everybody act nice, act good. The white people are looking. They're the ones that taught us to act out and be violent like that.
And I'm not going to give them that much power.
Okay.
Why are we giving our power away to them? Just like the vote. Why do we give our power away to them? Like, okay, now to go back to the other thing again, not only the whole thing about black respectability crap, but the idea of saying that something like the Oscars or the Grammys or anything where, something that's big in the world, why are we saying it's a white platform? It's a world platform. We belong in the world. We are citizens of the world. We are the original people of the world. Why do we constantly give ourselves over to other words I will not say, but them good people.
That's an interesting point. I mean, one could argue that the Oscars have traditionally only glorified and uplifted majority white projects. That Hollywood is majority white as far as the power brokers. But your point is an interesting one, because the Oscars isn't the Oscars if you don't have tens of millions of people worldwide watching it. And so you could definitely make the argument that it is a world platform, even though it's traditionally been controlled by white folks, and that more than likely the people who consider themselves white, more than likely that won't continue anyway, because the world is changing.
Chris Rock himself said in Hollywood Reporter, Hollywood is a white industry. And I mean, think about it. This is also an industry that once upon a time, kind of coddled Nazi Germany back in the day. Hollywood Reporter talked about that, a shameful thing. So I don't know. It's a funny, nuanced game you kind of have to play between all these things. But it doesn't mean we can't get the best part, as the 5% Nation likes to say. Get the best part of things and preserve that for yourself, and don't constantly be so worried about the white gaze, as we've talked about before, Dominique. It's just nonsense. And
I saw a lot of people berating Will Smith, black people, on social media yesterday, and it was irritating me. He's set back black people 200 years, or he's done this. Or no, first of all, I wish he had the power to, because that would mean he had the power to set us forward 200 years also.
Exactly. Like, people do not get their negative logic. That's the thing I need to see. But ultimately, it's a matter of black men and black women. If we could close ranks on stuff that's kind of silly, we could close ranks on how people are going to treat us and say, look, no matter what we do, you ain't going to sit there and treat all black people based on one person. You decide, oh, that's the poster child of black people. We're gonna treat them all like this. Bill Cosby once talked about that on Dick Cavett back in the day. But you're gonna treat us like this. If we say, you get some of the knuckleheads on there, they'll say they're jealous of Jewish folks or jealous of queer folks, because as groups they'll say we have this standard and you're gonna treat us with respect. So it goes to say that if we're this collective, then we can collectively agree you're going to treat us with this respect, THIS respect. And that's my thing, ultimately. I don't want to talk in circles. Thank you for your time.
All right, Kwamel, it's always good to hear from you. A lot of interesting points. I think we fall into a trap, and I do think respectability politics is a trap, because that was the argument that was always put forth, I'm going to say 3 years ago, about Black Lives Matter. They're too rough. They need to be less confrontational. Well, if that's not your style, don't do it. But don't down someone else for doing it, because they're doing activism the way they see fit, just like you do it the way you see fit. And everybody has a role to play. And when we talk about this situation with the Oscars, people who are mortified because white folks saw us acting out, or because now it's going to be the ghetto Oscars or whatever. That's, I think it's problematic, because it means that everything we do is in relationship to what someone else in the dominant group might think or say or judge about us. Now, I'm not trying to say that it was a good idea to run up there and slap Chris in the face. I'm not trying to say that. I do understand it. And, when you look at Lupita Nyong'o in her face, she's sitting right next to Will. She's not shocked, and she's not cheering him on. But what I saw was someone who wasn't that surprised, because people, look, go to Africa. See what happens if you disrespect somebody's wife. That's what I'm saying. Go to most other countries. Go to China. See what happens if you disrespect somebody's wife. It's not going to go good for you. Now, a lot of people were saying, he could have taken him outside, taken him around the back. He could have, could have, would have, should have. We all do things we shouldn't have done. And, I'm sure he regrets it. I would have been mortified. I'm always worried I'll do something like that, because sometimes, our tempers get the better of us. And we're not strategic or wise. That said, to me, the fact that, Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith have entanglements, because it's not just her, I'm sure. I've been in enough relationships to know that's not going down. I'll be sleeping with a bunch of people and you'll wait at home. That's never how that goes. Even when you don't have an open marriage, people creep. Anyway, the point is, so basically what you're saying is that unless a person has a perfect marriage and no one's ever cheated on the other one, they're not supposed to defend each other, and they're not supposed to have each other's back. That's dumb. If they have an agreement and their agreement works for them, then he has every right to defend his wife. Now, does he have a right to smack somebody? No. But I hate this. There's running around this other clip of Will gently smacking this white reporter on the red carpet, and people are saying, oh, he has a history of doing this. But in that case, that guy tried to kiss him on the mouth. So actually, that reporter was assaulting Will Smith, and Will Smith gently smacked him. He, in the era of Me Too, we should be sophisticated enough to know that a person can't just walk up to you and kiss you on the mouth, even if they say they're ha-ha funny, a prank reporter. I don't care. So that's not a good example of him losing his temper. In fact, it's a good example of him maintaining his composure in a situation where others might have reacted differently. And it doesn't denote homophobia either, by the way. Having a random stranger trying to kiss you, male or female, is problematic. It doesn't have to do with homophobia. It has to do with you don't get to assault me. And so, I'm glad that Will has apologized, and I hope the Academy doesn't do the dumb thing I'm hearing they're going to do, which is strip him of that award. Joe Biden's got his budget plan out. We talked on yesterday about how he has a plan to tax the rich. This basically affects less than 1,000 individuals, the super billionaires, and will raise quite a bit of money to help pay for the agenda that the Biden administration has, and bring down the deficit, the money that the 45th president, he who shall not be named, already spent. He wants to bring those deficits down. He's also doing what he said in his speech in putting more money into policing. I think he repeatedly said, fund the police. Well, he's doing it. So if budgets are moral documents, as the great Dr. Julianne Malveaux says, then this moral document shows us that the number one priority for the Biden administration, for this country, is the military and law enforcement. Now, there are some good things in this budget, but the fact of the matter is, it's a huge defense spending. Huge, $795 billion in defense, $915 billion for domestic programs. If you peel the law enforcement out of that $915 billion, it is most likely about 50-50 in the budget for military and policing. That's crazy. Those taxes, just those under 1,000 people paying a little bit of taxes instead of no taxes, would raise $361 billion in one decade. $361 billion off of these top, 700-800 people. News and traffic, and call me, 800-920-1580. It's KBLA Talk 1580, 40 acres and a mic.
You have the right to remain silent, but don't let them hear you on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Mike Island, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. More severe weather is hitting most of the country this week.
Looking for legitimate political discourse without the bear spray? Tune in and speak out. KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes, indeed. It's always time for you to speak out. 800-920-1580 is the number to call. Remember that story? There's a worker inside of the Dunkin Donuts, and his name is Corey Pujols. He was 27 years old. This is in Florida. And the man was, he's a black man. He was called the N-word by a white senior citizen. And the guy was very disrespectful to him. He was working. The guy was trying to order coffee at the drive-thru, and the people couldn't hear him. He got mad. He parked his vehicle. He went into the restaurant, started complaining. And then they're saying this guy came in all the time, and he was just abusive, problematic, and racist. So then he called Corey, the inward after he had asked the guy to leave. And he told him, "Don't call me that again." And the guy did. And Corey Pujos punched him in the jaw, knocked him to the floor. He hit his head, and he died. He fractured his skull and got brain contusions. He was charged with aggravated manslaughter. He could have been facing 30 years in prison. But in the end, they did a plea deal. He'll do anger management classes. He'll take 200 hours of community service. And it's not ideal. It's 2 years of house arrest is what they're calling it. But he pleaded guilty to felony battery. This is one of those situations where you almost feel like he shouldn't have gotten anything, but he did punch the guy. Clearly, it wasn't his intent to kill this man. The guy called him the N-word. He said, "Don't do it again." He did it again. He punched him, but he was elderly. His name is Vonell Cook. He was 77. I'm glad they reached an agreement. And, he's going to be a felon for his life. But again, okay, take anger management. It's a tough situation, though, because he was provoked. And he was serially abusive with those folks. So what role does that guy play? You're going to call someone the N-word and they're kind enough to tell you don't do it again, and then you do it again? Yeah. Dick Durbin, he's a Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's saying that Justice Clarence Thomas needs to recuse himself from anything related to the January 6th attempted coup on the Capitol because of his wife's text messages with the chief of staff to the 45th president, where she was, this wife of a sitting Supreme Court justice, was trying to convince him to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Durbin says this raises a question about conflict of interest for Justice Clarence Thomas. And this is a quote that I liked. He said, "To think that he would consider a case where his wife is frequently contacting the chief of staff for the president and giving advice on matters that are going to be ultimately litigated by the court for the good of the court, I think he should recuse himself for those cases." And I think that's the least he should do. Honestly, I think he should step down, but we know that's not going to happen. If you see the text where Ginny Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, is urging the president's chief of staff to overturn the election, it's really scandalous. Forget about the Oscars. This is scandalous. Somebody who is tasked with being the impartial justice on the highest court in the land has a wife who's texting the president's chief of staff telling him to overturn the election results. That should be a much bigger scandal than it is. The fact, though, that the head of the Judicial Committee is concerned about this is a good sign. Durbin says that they won't take it up until after the vote on the confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson. But this means that there could be some momentum starting to build as a result of this completely scandalous exchange. More than 24 text messages between Ginny Thomas, the wife of Justice Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and Mr. Meadows, who was the chief of staff to he who shall not be named. And when you think about the fact that the president was trying to keep all of that information from getting to the committee, because this was unveiled as part of thousands of pages of emails and texts and documents that Meadows actually turned over voluntarily to the committee. Now he's not cooperating anymore. But the point is that the fact that, when the court ruled that those documents have to be turned over, that the January 6th committee can get documentation about what happened on January 6th, Justice Clarence Thomas was the only one that voted against that. Now we see why. It was going to expose his wife. He didn't give a statement at the time about why he was voting to keep those documents secret and hidden. And we've been over this. There's no ethics guidelines for the activities of a Supreme Court justice's spouse. Can we change that, please? The justices don't have the same stringent guidelines, the Supreme Court justices, as any regular old local judge. But federal law does require that they recuse themselves from cases when their impartiality might reasonably be questioned. Just as Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is saying she'll recuse herself from the Harvard affirmative action case, to me that means Justice Clarence Thomas should recuse himself. He should step down. But barring that, he should recuse himself for anything around January 6th, but not just January 6th. Anything around race, anything around sexual misconduct, because clearly he has no impartiality when it comes to these topics. And this is a scandal that we have to keep talking about because hopefully it will result in some kind of real accountability for our Supreme Court justices. It's the highest court in the land. This is where the buck stops. So if these folks are able to do just any old thing, that is a problem. That's a problem. This woman must have been smoking weed ahead of 420. This lady called 911 to say that her Kentucky Fried Chicken order was wrong. She says she paid for 8 pieces, she only got 4. This is in Ohio. It wasn't even like she went to DoorDash or something. She actually went to the restaurant, got the chicken, took it home, and was mad because she only got 4 and she paid for 8. So she called 911. She insisted on talking to a police officer. And no, by the way, she wasn't black. Is this a Karen case? Chicken Karen? I don't know. But those stories, those not just the chicken ones, especially the ones that endanger people's lives. If you're calling 911, if you're calling the police on people for no good reason, you need to be held accountable to pay for that. That's what I think. Remember Jamaican immigrant Peter Spencer, who was killed on a hunting trip with his all-white group of friends? Jasiri X was telling about that. We got some news on what's happening with that case as we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
And you're always welcome to call. 800-920-1580 is the number. If you got something to say, clap back, bring it forward. All are welcome. That is participatory radio. So Peter Spencer is a Jamaican immigrant. He was 29 years old. He was killed in December after he was invited to go to a cabin out in the country by a coworker. Everybody in this hunting party was white, except for Mr. Spencer. And he never was seen alive again. He goes to this cabin in the country with his white coworkers, and he was found dead of gunshot wounds. So basically there were 5 guys in the party. One of them was black, and the black guy ends up dead. Now the district attorney there in Venango County has announced there will be no charges. They're saying that it was self-defense, that he was killed in self-defense. The family says obviously they disagree with this decision, but they're not surprised by it. They say they've seen this kind of behavior from the Pennsylvania State Police and the county DA from day one. Just a really problematic case. They say they detained and questioned the 4 other individuals and decided that it was self-defense, that they seized firearms and controlled substances. They said he was shooting an assault-style gun erratically because he was drunk, and that they had all taken psychedelics. And they said that the guy shot him in self-defense. And I don't see that in this report, but some of the reports that I read earlier, and certainly what Asiri X told us, was that the gunshots were in the back. Really sad situation, and I hate to see that family is probably not going to get closure on this particular piece of news. The state of Mississippi has a state song that was written it's based on, it's like a reboot of a song that was created by a segregationist. And now lawmakers have approved House Bill 1487 to change the state song to something that was not written by a racist. They're actually talking about having 2 state songs, and one of them would be by blues legend Robert Johnson, which is pretty cool. But their song now is called Go Mississippi. It's been the state song since 1962. And it's a remix of a song that contains the lyrics, "Roll with Ross, he's his own boss. For segregation 100%. He's not a moderate like some of the gents. He'll fight integration with forceful intent." The remix. So, as we see, even though these things are small, those little things add up to big changes. And we continue to see the momentum and the changes taking place based on our protests and our struggle, which, despite the war on Black Lives Matter, the war on the truth, the war on anti-blackness, the war on critical race theory, still we rise, and we're going to keep rising. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Money ain't a thing.
Money, 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 money. Old money or new money. Either way, KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's right, baby.
Tune in weekdays to the Millionaires Roundtable with Lynn Richardson at 12 noon and keep it locked to Ahead of the Crypto Curve with Naja Roberts. Weekdays at 1 p.m. It's the KBLA Talk 1580 Midday Money Change. At noon, Lynn Richardson is making millionaires one family, one day, $1, and $1 at a time. At 1 p.m., Naja Roberts, the queen of crypto, is here to make sure you don't get pulled under by the rising tide of these new currencies. Old money or new money, we want your money to work harder for you than you did for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
We want to help you make vertical and horizontal money. Money when you're standing up and money when you're lying down. It's the KBLA Talk 1580 Midday Money Chain, the Millionaires Roundtable with Lynn Richardson, weekdays at 12 noon, followed by Ahead of the Crypto Curve with Naja Roberts at 1 p.m. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
More money, more money, more money.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
So remember I said Colin Kaepernick and Naomi Osaka are teaming up. Well, that is exactly what's happening. In February, we had Dr. Nana Boakye on this show. She is the scientist behind the skincare line called Kinlo that was created by Naomi Osaka, the tennis great. Actually, they sent me a bunch of her products. Really, really nice stuff. It is what she calls it, functional skincare, sun care, formulated specifically for people with melanated skin. I really liked it. They have sunscreen that doesn't turn you white, but actually, and doesn't smell weird. And just, I liked her coconut oil lotion, and just a lot of the stuff was really good. Well, now, Colin Kaepernick is has joined the board of directors for her company, Kinlo, and he's also made an investment, a seed investment, joining that brand's board of directors. I love that. He says he's honored to join Naomi and her Kinlo team of diverse and experienced leaders. Gotta love this. Both of them have stood up for social justice causes. Both of them have been at the top of the heap in terms of their athletic achievement. And they apparently have been friends for a long, long time. And they both are committed to elevating Black-owned brands and really highlighting what it is that Black people, people of color, need out of their products. So that's pretty cool. I love it. Actually, Hill Harper's on the board too, as is Billie Jean King, the tennis legend. She's invested in Kinlo. I love that. I love that Naomi Osaka is giving, not just the conscious community, but other people who claim they want to be conscious and be woke, giving them a chance to put their money where their mouth is and invest in a Black-owned business. And that creates opportunities, just like Dr. Nana Boachi is now, formulating the products. Is a Black scientist and Black models and Black, on and on it goes. Recycling those dollars. Love, love, love that. Before we get into the daily deep dive, I want to remind you, Friday is the deadline to get the money for your rental assistance from COVID. The statewide eviction protection ends on Friday. And if you're already in the pipeline, that will give you protection from eviction, will give you resources as far as eviction prevention help. And you could get money for utilities. You could get money for back rent. And now they're even adding future rent because there is so much money still in the pot and folks are not applying. Call 833-430-2122, 833-430-2122, or you can go to your search engine and type in housing is key. You only have till Friday. It's not that complicated. Get in the pipeline in order to slow down the prospect of eviction, get your utilities paid, get your rent paid, and get caught up on the financial damage, or at least some of it, that was incurred by the pandemic. We've got news and traffic. Then we'll be talking with activist Damian Goodman on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.